Hey everybody, it's Alexander Dahl with Manifest Brutality once again. So we have another interview here. So without further ado, we'll just go ahead and jump straight into that. All right, bye. All right, so I'm currently on the phone with John Bair. He's one of the people that reached out to me about the current interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm John Bair. I'm a songwriter and rock musician in Minneapolis. I'm from West Virginia. I've been here for probably 3 years, and yeah, just I have a band. We're called Gowns, and that's Gowns. We have some recent big releases, and we're just excited to make music. I'm excited to make music. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be interviewing Alex. This is really cool.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you first recognized music. What was kind of the seminal moments that made you realize like music was something you wanted in your life for the rest of your life?
Oh wow! So I grew up in Pentecostal Christianity. I grew up singing in church. I grew up doing music. It was always almost a part of my DNA, and or it very much was a part of my DNA, and it was something that I constantly tried to buck against. When I was young, I almost, I remember just saying in my head, like I hate music. I just like, I want to be doing visual art. I want to be doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never a good visual artist. I was naturally just kind of inclined to music. And as much as I bucked against it, I kept finding myself in musical situations. And
Mm-hmm.
over time, that just evolved to look like different things. But I think the moment that I knew that it was for me was in high school. I was a jazz saxophonist, and there was a certain dedication that I started to give to music that I didn't have to anything else, and it was pretty apparent, I think, at that point that that's where I was going, regardless of what people around me said and how much of a pipe dream that people would say that it was.
Mm-hmm. So, you mentioned that you were a jazz saxophonist in high school. Were you part of concert band and jazz band?
All of it, yeah. Concert, marching, jazz. I had my own jazz quartet. We had some cool successes and stuff. We got cool free arts as well, and for jazz saxophone.
Awesome. So, moving from the jazz band, concert band kind of avenue, what kind of made you branch out into wanting to write and create your own music, like in an extracurricular level?
Mm. So as far as extracurricular music making, it was out of necessity. In ninth grade, I started to really dedicate myself to music, as I've said. I practiced way too much, and it just became, yeah, it just became necessity because I wasn't digging the concert band that much. I wasn't digging the Christmas music,
Mm-hmm.
arranged for concert band. I wasn't digging the jazz band, the big band as much. I was really listening to a lot of Miles Davis. I was listening to a lot of this smaller quartet stuff, and I thought that's where it was at. I thought that's where it was cool. So it just became a necessity that I start experimenting with a lot of things, and I did. I started a jazz quartet. We were called Diggin' the Weather. I
Mm-hmm.
started a new progressive death punk ambient acid trance jazz group called Round of Applause for Our Lord Satan. Which was more of an experiment,
Mm-hmm.
just honestly just having a lot of fun with textures and things. But yeah, so that looked like different things, but it was out of necessity for sure.
Sure. So you kind of mentioned playing Christmas music and then also kind of a religious upbringing. Did you ever play with any of like the mega church bands or any like church band or anything like that?
That's a really funny question. Thank you for asking that. I less that, I grew up in, like I said, in Pentecostal Christianity. It was gospel. It was roots gospel. Well, maybe less. Yeah, I'd say it was like roots, like Southern gospel kind of stuff. And it was kind of a smaller church. And Yeah, it was more that kind of thing. I think at points I did find myself in more of those like megachurch-y situations.
Hmm.
Um, playing saxophone for on bigger ensembles with like string sections and things in some of the bigger churches. But
Sure.
I've got to, yeah.
Awesome. So, once you kind of established the necessity for yourself to kind of create music on your own, how did you initially approach the independent music scene? Did you kind of just start, putting saxophone progressions together and you're like, hey, check this out? Or did you start to learn other instrumentation and other production methods to start building like a song repertoire?
Right. That's a really good question. So, as I started to experiment with, different ensembles and things like that, my own individual things, even within the structures of, playing other people's music and things, I felt the need to start to create my own things. That really started to become strong when I went to college, and I actually had to give up saxophone. I went to school for jazz saxophone, but I had to give up saxophone because I had some chronic arm pain. That's whenever I really started to pursue songwriting and creating my own beast because, I think that I was along a track. I was in that jazz saxophone, bebop, jazz track. I'd probably be this day in Pittsburgh playing jazz and, as a freelance musician, as a session player probably. But it was because of the chronic pain that I started experiencing and my inability to do what I was one track to do that made me decide, I need to do something that's just completely uncharted territory,
Hmm.
uncharted ground, something that's scary and that all my professors are telling me that it's unwise. It was when I started songwriting and putting together what I'd say like truly original work. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. So, what kind of made you decide to make the move from West Virginia to Minneapolis? Was it something else, or did you kind of see the music scene here and you thought that might be a good place to try? Like, what was the motivation for the move?
Mm. Well, I was incredibly anxious when I was in music school, and I was talking to a mentor, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with a music degree. Are you kidding me?
Hmm.
And he said, it doesn't matter where you go or what you do, just that you go somewhere and do something.
Hmm.
And he said, pick a city, and I was like, okay, cool. And he was like, no, pick a city, and I said, right now. And he said, pick a city, and I was like, Minneapolis. And he was like, all right, you pack your bags, you're going there this summer. And so that was the summer of my junior year. I came out here. I met a songwriter. He had gone to Berkeley, and he was just he had so much. There was so much I could learn from him, and this it was this deep well of inspiration for me to be working with him. And so I came out here for a summer. Fell in love with the scene. Fell in love with what I could create with him, and also just how green Minneapolis was. There's so many, draws for me. So I went back to school, finished up, and then came out here for good. And, I never really looked back. I love the scene out here.
Awesome. So, once you did kind of establish yourself in Minneapolis permanently, what were kind of your first moves to get a band together and start creating, a project that you wanted to be committed to?
Mm. My first moves were, I was working with that songwriter. Things didn't work out. A year into that, it was apparent that, we were just on different paths and we needed to go separate ways. Uh, and so I started to do my own thing. I needed a band at that point. He kind of took the rest of the musicians that we were working on,
Hmm.
so I was left kind of with nobody. And so, I started to, seek out. My first move was to find people on Craigslist.
Hmm.
I, put out tons of ads. They were, a mixture between like super specific and super vague. And they started to get really weirdly specific, in kind of a youthful, charming way.
Hmm.
Um, And yeah, I got some real weirdos I connected with, and eventually I had some really cool conversations with some people. I met people out for coffee,
Mm-hmm.
made sure to meet people out in public because I know Craigslist, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's how Downs was formed. Actually, is I had reached out to people in Craigslist and connected and put people together that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really rocky at first. I didn't think that it was the formula to success. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think that, I was very, very insecure. And when I say that, like, there's just not another word that I can use that like would express the intensity of insecurity that I had at that time. And yeah, but it's like, what else could I do? Uh, I didn't have like my choice of every quality
Mm-hmm.
in an ensemble that I could have. But over time, those insecurities kind of left after working with these people. I think anytime you get together with new people, there's personality things that you're not sure about. There's musical traits that you're like, they love pop punk, but like I'm not so much about it.
Sure.
I love Radiohead, but they don't love Radiohead.
Mm-hmm.
There's just like all those things that you're insecure about at first, and over time, though, I found that working with the people that I worked with, it started to just mold itself in a really constructive way. And over time, personality started to gel more. It started to become like a family. And that's the thing that I think anybody that starts a band over Craigslist or something like that, you kind of find, if there's not
Mm-hmm.
an organic relational aspect to begin with, you have to grow into those personalities and into the different musical interests that you all have.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, yeah, over time, some members ended up quitting. Some members, it's looked like different things, but there was a core group of 3 people that has remained consistent. And I think that what's allowed that consistent core to remain is the commitment, and I would say mostly the commitment.
Awesome. So going back just slightly, I've had my fair share of horror stories auditioning on Craigslist as well. I like to hear those stories. So are there any of those that you'd like to share?
Oh man. Okay. Yes. There are stories I would love to share. I've got to decide real quick. Just give me a second to decide
Mm-hmm.
if I want to if I want to, just because I don't want to be too mean girls about it.
No, I get it. And, there's this weird, like, kind of unspoken thing in the Minneapolis music scene about how, like, it's the same 25 people that are all in, like, 20 different bands, but it's all the same group, like, small group of 25 people. So I totally understand not wanting to, pinpoint too many details, but I get it.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to leave it a little vague, but I'm just going to say it was a mixture between people showing up completely unprepared, completely unprofessional, completely bankrupt of capacity to play the music and the preordained material,
Mm-hmm.
and then people that were overly prepared musically, almost to a creepy degree, given that this was completely original music and they knew the music almost like, creepily too well,
Mm-hmm.
but completely devoid of social skills. And, I'm going to leave it there.
That's
it's
fair. That's
just
fair.
the mix,
Yeah, definitely. So, so coming back to where we're at, Downs is formed. You guys are getting together. What were you guys kind of doing pre-virus? Like getting out there doing shows, recording music. Like, what was that process like?
So yeah, we were trying to play bigger and bigger venues. We kind of consider it like our home venue, which is Studio B, Skyway Theater.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, we just have a certain affinity for that space, and we're trying to play there a good bit and trying to branch out, play bigger venues. We kind of we're playing like smaller venues, and it wasn't it wasn't the humility of smaller spaces. It was just the nature of our band.
Mm-hmm.
We're a little rowdy. We do this alt rock pop thing, but I want to be a really energetic like front man, and
Mm-hmm.
my band, we want to be energetic and just like really connect with the crowd. And whenever everybody's elbow to elbow, it can be very challenging to do that. So that's kind of where we were before COVID, was just trying to play bigger spaces and trying to find those places that really felt right.
Sure.
And we had a big release. Our EP, The Hollows, was released on February 28th. That was our release show. And before COVID, sure, there was a time gap though. So let me just kind of construct a little bit before COVID. So around fall of 2019, we were in the studio for the first time, and we had been sitting on a year's worth of material, and that we'd been playing live.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to the studio, the library studio in Northeast, with Matt Patrick, and it was a lovely time. We were really unprepared going into the studio. We've been rehearsing things, we've been playing things live for a while, but I think it was that process of like actually getting into the studio and saying, oh, like these songs have been played this way live, and they're not working at all,
Mm-hmm.
to the scrutiny of the studio, and that kind of microscope that you put up through the
Sure.
music.
Sure.
So, that's kind of where we were in the fall, and so it was just this kind of rush in the fall to just rearrange material, really critically think about different aspects that weren't working when that microscope was put up to them, and getting that feedback from Matt Patrick, who's a wonderful a person, and just a brilliant mind in that
Mm-hmm.
way, to just give that kind of critical feedback. So that's what happened in the fall, and then going forward, it was just wonderful to have had that studio experience. Our live set started to change a lot, and as we went into our release, we just started to, I think, really start to hone in on a sound, and we started working with a publicist around that time. Um, so we recorded in like October, around there, and then we released in February. And this was 3 songs. It wasn't. We were sitting on very little material for kind of a long time, at the request and advice of Matt Patrick, who kind of told us, critiqued our strategy to just release right away, and
Mm-hmm.
said, you should think about a publicist. You should think about releasing this the right way. You should think about actually trying to create a splash. Trying to get The Current, trying to get other local media involved with the release. And so yeah, we were sitting on just a very little material for kind of a long time. So we worked with Krista Balinskis at Tinderbox Music going up to our release. Was our publicist,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just try to do everything right for the release, to try to make as big a splash as we could.
Nice. So, what are a couple stories that you've encountered throughout your entire time working in the music industry, whether it be something you saw or something you did, that really kind of stand out to you, that are some of like the podium moments that you feel really kind of encapsulate your interactions with music?
So I think a formative moment for me was last winter, maybe the winter before. And I'd say it was the winter before. I was going out into Minneapolis. Again, I love the scene. It's near and dear to my heart. I love all the venues. I love the house venues. There's a vibe I can't really describe, that's just different from any other place I've been. And I was going to several shows a week. I go to First Ave, 7th Street. I go to a house show. I was going to a lot of shows, and one thing that just kind of stuck out to me, there were several things, and I think I tend to think in, I tend to hold space in my thinking for extremes. One side of the spectrum and the other. I don't, just as a practice, and so so anyway, my experience going to so many different local shows was, on the one side of it, how fun and how energetic and just soul feeding every single show was that I'd go to live. You know, every kind of music that I'd see live was just so giving to my soul and to my experience being human. It created a vibrancy and made my life so colorful to go to so many shows. So that's on one side. And on the other was how few shows that I was truly wowed by,
Mm-hmm.
and that were so lacking in in the experience that I want to create for people.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, those are the two extremes. You know, I go to so many different shows that I love. On the other side, so many different shows that I experienced something that was not what I would want to create for people.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it is my goal to really to create a beautiful what I do music for.
Mm-hmm.
I saw to the grace of the scene and to my experience here, I went to go see Idols at First Avenue
Mm-hmm.
last year.
Okay.
And it was one of the most amazing shows of my life. They were so energetic. It wasn't too energetic. It wasn't contrived. It wasn't forced. It was perfectly energetic. But it was so heartfelt and raw. And it was raw and you know, kind of, it was raw, but it wasn't so testosterone filled as to be exclusive to
Mm-hmm.
people that aren't, you know, dudes. You know, like
Sure.
it felt like a very inclusive experience, even though there's a lot of energy. Yeah, and also Static Panic I saw at First Avenue, and their vibe was incredible. And to think that they're actually local and everything, that was incredible to see that a local band could be performing so well and with so much energy, you know, almost carrying the torch from someone like Prince.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, you know, when I saw them the first time. So, you know, I had some experiences that just kind of expanded my mind on what a live performance could be. And, you know, as going back to the mundane of going to a couple shows a week, just seeing how people, I think, were afraid to go to that place to kind of make fools of themselves, to do things that didn't work a lot of times, to expand themselves so that they can find the things that do work. I think, yeah.
So, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of put out some of your plugs and promote, you know, stuff you guys are doing, some websites you want people to go click on. So why don't you do that? Whatever social media you want to throw out there, let's have it.
Cool. Definitely follow Gowns Band on Instagram. Also on Facebook, Gowns Band Official, I think is our Facebook name. But we're very active on Instagram. That's our strongest platform. And definitely go give us a listen on Spotify. It should be the first thing that comes up. Gowns, all uppercase on Spotify. Although even if you know, don't capitalize everything, it should come up right away.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely give us a listen. Definitely follow us on Instagram. We could really use the support. We have a new single out. It's called Castles, very near and dear to our hearts. It's I've said of the song that I've spent a lifetime writing this song, and I think that's true. And it also has the bridge was written after the recent events in Minneapolis of George Floyd being murdered, and it encompasses some of that story and some of the thinking around that. And so yeah, go listen to Castles, and we've got a full-length LP coming out in the near future, and we got a brilliant music video coming out in a couple weeks that we're just ecstatic about.
Awesome.
So yeah, keep your eyes peeled, and to just stay in touch with us, Instagram, Gowns Band, and definitely give us some listens on Spotify. Go follow us there too.
Very cool. So I like to give the person that I'm interviewing the last word. Or the last word. So basically, just a message that you feel resonates with you that you want to put out there.
Art is the evidence of a life well lived. I think sometimes we get stuck on results and on specific projects. But I think at the end of the day, we are the art, and it's a spiritual and creative journey that, is not results oriented. And so have your projects and have fun with your projects and create constantly if you can, but know that creativity comes from a place of thriving, and that, humans that are thriving naturally create. And so, I think focus on living your life well, and giving to community, and don't be afraid to do all the things that make life rich, and all of the creativity and art. I think will come from that. I'd say that art is to the life well lived. That's been really feeding me recently. So